Commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
All right, everybody, we're live again. This is the way to do the show. This is the way I have the most fun. Look, I'm going to get into the Epstein stuff in a minute. I want to talk about that in great detail, talk about conspiracy theory, talk about what's going on in the country and how serious this is, a problem for the Trump administration. But first, look, I just have to get this out of the way. I don't know if you can hear this right now on your side, but, this is somewhat, I hope you just take this, as it is. I live in California, PG&E. They come by and they'll cut down your trees and they leave them in your yard. So in my case, I had a couple of huge oak trees, one that split into three. It was massive. It was beautiful. It was amazing, but it was dead. So PG&E came over like 3 weeks ago and they chopped it down, and they'll chop it down for free. Okay, that's fine. It would cost you $600 to $1,000. They cut it down, but they left it in the yard. So I had to have my my gardeners, who will do pretty much anything and everything, come out and get rid of the wood. I mean, if I've got this giant oak trees, now they're just laying in my front yard. And so, of course, I've got to tell you, it's today. I'm in California where we're doing this live. So it's 9:19 for me, which is why I was delayed. I was going to start this thing at 12 p.m. Eastern on the dot. But anyway, all that said is I've got like 4 or 5 chainsaws literally outside my studio and office right now going off pretty consistently. So if I can somehow focus on this show and not get distracted here, I will deserve some sort of medal. I joke. My wife, of course, is great at multitasking. I always say that men, we're terrible multitaskers. We get distracted very easily. And so this is unbelievable to me that I've got deafening chainsaw sound. The sounds of Doge chainsaws that are not happening in Washington, D.C. are outside my office in my ear. So anyway, let's get into this. I want to talk about Epstein. A lot of people are very upset about what's going on with Epstein. Obviously, as usual, I want to give you some facts. I want to give you some background, and then I'll give you my opinion as well. I don't want to downplay the Epstein debacle for a number of reasons. The Epstein list, if you will, no one can tell me what the Epstein list looks like because no one's ever actually seen an Epstein list, and this is part of the problem. It's about, in life, one of the tools in whatever you do for work, or it's just a life skill. You should underpromise and overdeliver. And what we have here is a classic case of overpromising and underdelivering, and it has real consequences. But first, I want to talk about Geraldo Rivera. And believe me, stay with me. This is going somewhere brilliant, I promise. I won't waste your time. But you've heard about Geraldo Rivera and that famed, infamous now, failed coverage of the Al Capone vault. I don't know if enough people know the background of this. So a couple of producers in the late 1970s had a fledgling new production company, and they were looking for something big to make money and get themselves out there, make a name for themselves, as a producer and production company would need to do. And these producers had read about this potential vault below a hotel, the Lexington Hotel, and it was in a magazine. And these two historians had written this article about this vault, suggesting that below the Lexington Hotel, there was a concrete wall, and in the basement, right, that might hold Capone's valuables, Capone's possessions. And this story was born from there. So these producers are approaching people looking for someone to buy this idea. Okay, let's do a live production of these vaults below the Lexington Hotel, and let's see what's inside. But you know what? You won't be surprised by this. This would make sense, right? Most of these companies, they wouldn't buy the idea because they were worried about the possibility that they would open this vault up and nothing would be inside. Do some of you know where I'm going with this? Okay. But let's keep going with the story because it's an amazing story. And Geraldo Rivera is one of the stupidest losers on the planet. So anyway, they're talking to these different companies saying, hey, I mean, think about this pitch. We read an article in this magazine by these two mafia historians that suggest that there was a concrete vault below the Lexington Hotel. And Al Capone could have had one of them. His stuff could be inside. Dead bodies could be there. And everyone passed. But they finally found somebody. But here's what happened. They continued to up the ante on the narrative to try to get people to buy this. They were so desperate for success. So they're pitching this story, and it keeps growing, right? They say, oh, well, now these guys are saying, okay, well, there's actually tunnels under this hotel, tunnels. There's a hidden staircase. And you know what? There's not one vault. There are 3 cement vaults. And they check it out. And they say, oh, you know what we just discovered? There's 3 vaults, right? The middle vault, that vault in the center, it's got like electric outlets. There's like electric wires going. Why would this vault need electricity? Were they storing wine down there, or was it dead bodies? So these guys finally found a sucker to buy this idea, and they were going to spend, I think, $900,000, close to $1 million on it. But they needed some schmuck to come in there and host the show to sell this idea. And they wound up with Geraldo Rivera because, of course, they wound up with Geraldo Rivera because Geraldo Rivera had been fired by ABC News and was unemployed. So they offered him $25,000, I think. Geraldo Rivera said, hey, he told his agent, make it $50,000 and I'm in. And so 30 million people are tuning into this. I mean, think about how massive this is before, I forget when this was broadcast. I was born in 87. So obviously I wasn't aware of this, didn't watch this. I wasn't one of the 30 million people that tuned in to watch this great reveal of the, famed Al Capone vault. But nonetheless, it was a big ordeal. They blew it open with, dynamite essentially. And they went in, and guess what they found? Diddly squats. But I want to play this for you. This is Geraldo. Geraldo, looking back, it's about a minute and a half, but it shows you some of the footage of what they did, how big of a production this was. And it's Geraldo Rivera reflecting on his failure. Watch this.
The idea was to open the vault on live international television.
I'm Geraldo Rivera, and you're about to witness a live television event. A massive concrete vault has been discovered. Some think it belonged to none other than the notorious Al Capone. Well, tonight, for the first time, that vault is going to be opened live.
Well, what happened that night 20 years ago made pop cultural history and made me the punchline of a million jokes, some of which are still being told. Today, for the first time since it aired in April 1986, here's a portion of the secrets of Al Capone's vault.
Now, what, if anything, that vault contains, we don't know. This is an adventure you and I are going to be taking together.
But when all was said and done, all I'd found was an old stop sign and a couple of empty gin bottles.
It seems, at least up to now that we've struck out with the vault, I'm disappointed about that, as I'm sure you are.
Then I swallowed my pride and kept my word.
I promised all the critics that if we didn't find anything, I'd sing a song. So, Chicago, that Hovland town. All right, I'm going. I'll see you.
So, Pam Bondi obviously is the Geraldo Rivera in the analogy that I've been going through all of this through with you to get to. And Pam Bondi owes the American people a song as well. I always like to give context and be realistic because I see people out there that are ready to throw Dan Bongino under the bus over this debacle. And I want to explain because I do have a little bit of insight. I have talked to some people that work for the FBI, for example. And so, these are credible sources. And but I want to stick with something real quick because something bothers me. And I'll get into my opinion about the Epstein stuff in a minute because this is the first big mistake we've actually seen from the Trump administration. And to me, it's predominantly a PR disaster. And look, if you're tuning in for the first time, if you've never listened to the Drew Allen Show or me before, every podcast host had their shtick. Bongino was the Secret Service guy. You've got these different things out there. I'm a publicist and I've done PR for a lot of people in the Trump administration, okay, from Tulsi Gabbard to other people that are undersecretaries of the Navy. I've done it for, Senate, congressmen and so on and so forth. So I just say that because I mentioned this last time. You've got a lot of people out there just firing from the hip, and they have big audiences, a lot of them, and they're doing you a disservice because actually it's just their opinion. They don't know any more than you do. They probably know less than you do, but they say things with such certainty, and they feed this thing that is unhelpful in the country. So, one person I saw was saying, Bongino, I told you, he couldn't be trusted. He doesn't have the temperament, to do this job. And I mean, I don't know Dan Bongino personally. I do know some famous people personally. I don't know Dan Bongino personally. I don't have any, skin in the game, if you will. I'm not like defending my buddy here, but people are very quick to open their mouths and just disparage people left and right. And my only observation about Dan Bongino, and then I'll give you some facts from inside info. But my thing with Dan Bongino is, I think that the idea that he doesn't have integrity is one of the sleaziest accusations you can make against Dan Bongino. I mean, Dan Bongino has run for Congress twice and failed. He finally had success in life, like real success, but it was relatively recent over the past few years with his podcast and his radio show. And he had a big audience. And he was fiery and he was hot and he gave his opinion. And Dan Bongino was always one of you, right? He was one of me. I mean, that was kind of his thing. He really captured the zeitgeist of kind of MAGA and what was happening in the country. And he left that job, and we're talking about millions of dollars on the table. He left millions of dollars on the table to go and get a job in Washington, D.C. I want to tell you something. I received a call in the midst of the Trump transition to take a job perhaps on the Maha side of things. And it's something I support 100%. But the idea of going and sitting in a cubicle in Washington, D.C., I couldn't tolerate. It wasn't like a alluring enough opportunity for me where I could see myself sacrificing. I've got 2 young girls. I mean, look, when you take these jobs in D.C., it's a sacrifice. It's not just a financial hit. And that's the thing, too. It would be a financial hit. I've got a 2.5-year-old in school. But, Dan Bongino was experiencing these things going from Florida to D.C. And I think Dan Bongino deserves a fair analysis here. So he gave up everything to go to Washington, D.C. for a thankless job. And so, Bongino's outrage about all this right now, you saw reports maybe that last week he stormed out of the office. He had some fighting or raised voices with Bondi and some other people about this. And Bongino, from everything I know, he doesn't want himself or frankly, the people now working for him at the FBI, because Bongino is one of these people that earns the trust and respect of everyone around him. You know how Pete Hegseth, as Secretary of Defense, goes out to these bases and stuff, and he's doing physical training with, the people currently active duty military. That's the same kind of person Bongino is. And I know for a fact from someone who works for the FBI, who was promoted not that long ago, within the last 6 months or so, was promoted to a job that's not in the field anymore. This person works in an office. He's a big deal now, and he misses the field. He doesn't like being stuck in an office. But this person was very suspicious of Dan Bongino getting the job of deputy director, because Dan Bongino has never worked for the FBI. And you've got all these people working for the FBI, which is part of the problem, right? But they're career FBI people. But Bongino's been Secret Service. He's been law enforcement. He understands the mentality of these types of men and women who work in these fields. And this person totally changed his opinion of Dan Bongino. He said he really was skeptical of Dan Bongino getting that job, didn't think he deserved it. And now he's come to really appreciate Dan Bongino completely. So, I mean, that's the kind of person Dan Bongino is, from someone who knows, not from some, armchair critic out there that just mouths off like a moron the moron that they are, or morons that they are every single day, just trying to get clicks and views. And that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to do a disservice. There's enough people that are stupid out there. And I'm sorry that I'm getting heated. And I really don't mean to be so offensive to people. But this is a topic that bothers me because there's so much at stake in this country. And there's so much division already. And there are people, part of the problem in this country is that good people don't want to rise to positions of power and influence because they get treated this way. And they don't have anybody to have their back. I mean, this guy Bongino has sacrificed and done all this stuff for people. And then, like that, people are like, screw Bongino. They've got naked photos of Bongino. That's not what's going on here. Now, I also have learned that people have seen these quote unquote files that we've been told about related to Epstein. And there is no smoking gun. There are case files. There are certain victims in there. But it's not what we've been told. And that, yes, is on Pam Bondi. But let me just, I want to be direct about all of this. So nobody knew, like when we talk about the Epstein files, everyone has their imagination to tell them what the Epstein list is. I mean, what was it? Is the Epstein list, a Google Doc that's just sit there? Is it in a vault underneath, the White House, beneath the FBI, like the Geraldo Rivera, vault? And all the secrets of Washington, D.C. are kept in one place, neat and tidy, and they're just hiding it from the American people? No. Now, Epstein was a monster. We have to deal with what we know and what we don't know. I think a lot of people have presented, I don't know if the evidence would be the word, but certainly enough adjacent evidence to suggest that Epstein was operating, as some sort of Israeli Mossad agent plus CIA agent, etc. And then from there, people extrapolate and say, well, he had blackmail on these officials and he was a tool of the quote unquote deep state to force politicians to bend the knee, right? And all that. So that's what we've been told. And that's a conspiracy. And I'm not saying, when I say conspiracy, by the way, I don't mean that it can't be true. We've seen so many conspiracies, right, that have been proven true. The Wuhan lab theory, right, that they dismissed. Oh yeah, the Kung Fu flu. Yeah, that originated in a bat market. Someone took a bite of the bat and bat soup and bada boom, bada bing. But what about the Wuhan lab of virology that was conducting gain of function research down the street? No. That had nothing to do with it. So I understand. Now, what are conspiracy theories anyway? And I know I'm doing the weave here. Don't worry. That's how I roll, okay? I got a lot of stuff to get to as well. But so with Bongino, anyway, it just ticks me off when people say I want to throw him under the bus. Bongino, let's deal with this first, okay? Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, President Trump himself. All of them were campaigning on the, strong suggestion that one of the priorities of the new Trump administration would be to release the Epstein files. Now, I don't know. Maybe some of you have been going down the rabbit hole a long time. You can figure out when this first started to surface, this verbiage about, Epstein list. People then confused flight logs with the Epstein list. This is the thing, too. What I'm upset about is the left is trying to use suddenly, the left, of course they are, is trying to use this Epstein stuff to try and sink the Trump administration. I'm not going to participate in that for a second. The left is our arch nemesis. They are the enemy of the country. They're in bed with the devil. They are destroying this country on purpose. And so I'm not going to help them do it and undermine the very important work that Trump is doing, has done, and will continue to do over this. That's the first thing, because at the end of the day, do you know what my guiding rule and principle is as far as this country is concerned, with my children, my wife, my family, you all out there? It's victory. It is defeating the left. Okay, that's it. That's what guides me. All right. So Bongino and these people, even Kash Patel. Now you could say, well, did Trump, how did he not know anything? He was president when Epstein, supposedly, killed himself. And that's a whole thing too, the footage. But, these people all went in there talking about the conspiracy theory we're talking about. And again, I'm not saying conspiracy theory like we shouldn't, like it's been resolved. But it's a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory is information, a story that we have to tell ourselves and others to fill in the gaps. And this is part of the problem in the country. We have had nothing filled in for us. We've been left high and dry so many times about so many issues. Trump-Russia collusion, we're still trying to fill that narrative in. J6, we still haven't gotten definitive answers about what happened there, even though we pretty much know what happened. It was a left-wing operation. You know, it's not that there weren't violent protests that broke out, but it was an atmosphere and a situation, an environment that was created by the left. They wanted that to happen, and they made sure it took place. That's what I'm talking about, to disrupt the debate over the fraud that took place throughout the country. We don't have answers on a lot of this stuff. So I'm not blaming you. I'm not lecturing you like, knock it off. We shouldn't be interested in the Epstein stuff. I just want to give you a different take because I'm tired. I don't know. I'm just tired of hearing every pundit saying the same thing, pulling it out of their ASS, and nobody knows what they're talking about. And it just gets accepted by everybody as like the facts. Oh, Bongino, they don't have naked pictures on Dan Bongino. You know what happened with Dan Bongino and Cash Patel and even Pam Bondi? And I'll explain more about Pam Bondi, what I think in a second. They all knew exactly what we know about the quote unquote Epstein files, right? There's a list, there's Epstein files, it's going to show us exactly who the monsters were, who these high level government officials were that were involved in this Mossad, CIA joint operation. So they all believed that, like you and me. And then they got there and guess what? None of it was there. Now, firstly, do you think that, the Biden administration, the deep state that's been running the country, you think they were going to sit there for 4 years amidst wrecking the rest? You think they just sat there and like put a nice tidy list together? Now, Trump has come out. He's put out a Truth Social message, I think, suggesting that this list was doctored. I think we deserve, I know that we deserve some kind of answer that doesn't treat us like we're stupid. After all, this is our country and these people work for us. So I'm not saying that this administration's done right by us on this issue, but I just want to disregard this notion that, Cash Patel, everyone's compromised in there right now. That's not the case. In Pam Bondi's case, I think that she's just doesn't have the humility to do even what Geraldo Rivera did in that Al Capone thing and come out and say, look, I was wrong. I misled you guys. I'm sorry. She doesn't want to expose weakness. But the idea that Bongino's compromised and they've got naked photos of him and Patel, doing whatever is absurd. Occam's razor. Sometimes the simplest answer is the correct answer. But we live in a time where, our minds go wild because of being betrayed and lied to for so long. And so there's just no end to where our brain will take us. Has anyone asked themselves, like, what if he didn't work for Mossad and CIA? I'm not saying that he didn't, but I'm just saying, at some points, conspiracy theory, we use them. I use them. You use them. We all use them to effectively, when we don't want to accept a reality that doesn't match the narrative we've told ourselves, it's like, no, that's not true. Someone's lying. So, I'm just saying we can't do this all day long, every day about every single thing. There's not everything has a conspiracy theory to it. Sometimes it's pretty simple. And in this case, from what I've been told and what I know, this Epstein list everyone talked about, there's never been an Epstein list. And also, it doesn't even make sense when you think about it. You think Epstein kept some detailed diary of I guess that's what people told themselves because they were certain that, his purpose was to blackmail all these politicians. So what? He had a nice, neat little file on his computer where it's like, oh, Bill Clinton, sex with a 6-year-old right here, July 4th, whatever. So anyway, but it's not good. Look, Trump doesn't want this to derail the administration. A mistake was made here. But again, I'm not willing to burn down the administration of the country over this. I think we should kind of gently, or, some of us can press a little bit harder to seek some kind of answer that makes sense, because we haven't got an answer that makes sense right now. But I'm not going to sit here and dump on Bongino or anything else. By the way, Linda P has put up here. I'm just reading Linda. I love these comments, by the way. Where's Ghislaine's little black book that she surrendered to the judge at the time of her sin? See, these are legitimate questions. And to your point, Linda, I don't have the answer. Nobody has the answer. It seems like that's the point. And I think these questions need to continue to be answered. Now, we've seen that Maxwell she's willing now to go and meet in Congress and testify about what she knows. I just, the problem is now I just don't believe anybody about anything sometimes. And there's obviously a political agenda now. I mean, think about this. Now, suddenly she wants to testify before Congress. Okay. All of a sudden they've dug this up. Oh, she's ready. Well, the left, people in the left, of course, is saying, well, this is happening because Trump obviously was flying on the Lolita Express and was a pedophile. Okay. That's what the left wants to say now. Now, never mind all the people on the left that are involved in the situation, but let's isolate the accusation, which is absurd against Trump now as well. Where were they making these accusations, while Biden was in office, while they had quote unquote control of the Epstein list and so on and so forth? You think after trying to assassinate Donald Trump on the campaign trail in Butler, Pennsylvania, you think they wouldn't have used everything they had? I mean, they tried to kill him to prevent him from running for office. So you think that they wouldn't, reveal something about the Epstein list if Trump was on it? So I'm just sick of it. And this is how I know Trump's not a deep state operative. I just want to remind you of something that happened. You might remember this event. Actually, we just had the anniversary of it over the weekend.
Oh, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. Oh.
Yeah, that happened. That was real. American citizen Compatore, he was killed, firefighter. And the left, of course, had their own conspiracy theory for that because that was not a politically expedient moment for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Democrats, right? Obviously, an attempted assassination of an American citizen, a presidential candidate, is going to have a unifying effect. So, of course, they came up with plenty of conspiracy theories themselves about that, which were related to what? Him staging it. He planned it, and yet someone. So I'm just saying, we can't allow, the allure of political expediency to drive the facts that we're willing to believe at a given moment. Right? That's all I'm saying. But first, let me tell you about the wellness company. Do you ever wonder why your brain feels foggy, even when you're eating clean, when you're exercising? It may not be burnout like you suspect. It could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan McDonald revealed the direct link between chronic parasitic infections and neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline, which is more reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company has a solution for you. It's ivermectin plus mebendazole, the gold standard parasite solution. It's now combined in one cleanse combo, and it's designed to eliminate these harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. It's medical grade. It's not some trendy herbal gimmick. You just fill out a quick intake form. You get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. Maha is officially here. And a wellness company is making hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to dailyclout.health and use code dailyclout to save $60 off plus free shipping on all orders. All right, so you get my drift with that. By the way, I just want to talk about this secret assassination. Secret Service, this secret assassination. It's the drowning of the drumming of, I don't know, whatever, my hearing that loss that's taken place from these chainsaws. All right. Well, what happened, this is a perfect example, right? This is why I'm talking about conspiracies. We don't know anything more effectively about what took place in Butler, Pennsylvania in that clip that I just played than we did at the time. I mean, how is it possible that we cannot get to the bottom of so many things? And again, I'm with you. This is why these quote unquote conspiracy theories fill the void. Secret Service officials, we just found out, we just learned, were aware of a classified threat 10 days before the Butler assassination attempt, and they did not tell agents guarding Trump about it. Can you comprehend the depth of, forgive me, retardery that defines this type of action? And by the way, it's a classified threat, so that means we still don't get to know what the threat actually was. What information did they have? I mean, and this is where I'm with you 100%. We get treated like idiots by the dumbest people in America. This is one thing I want to point out too. People that think there's like some unifying conspiracy theory, some organism that exists in human form in Washington, D.C., where all these secrets are stowed away and everything has some kind of, really. Have you met or talked to people that work in Washington, D.C.? I mean, just look at the politicians, many of the politicians. These are the stupidest people in America. The dumbest people in America, in most cases, are working for the government. These people couldn't get jobs. You think that the cretin, he looks like, Lucy's husband, Lucy, the fossil that was found that at one point was the oldest fossil ever, this Neanderthalic crap. You think that Eric Swalwell, that's what I'm talking about, Neanderthal, man, you've seen this guy's mouth. And I mean, this guy looks like he's I'm not saying he's inbred. I would never say something like that, but you understand what my point is. You think that somebody like that, or Jasmine Crockett, I call her, AOC, Fetterman, and you think any of these people, these people are really, they're planning all these conspiracies, and people are idiots. They're not capable of doing, in many cases, what a lot of us think they are. But anyway, senior level Secret Service officials failed to share classified threat information related to President Trump with those assigned to protect him during the Pennsylvania campaign rally where he was nearly assassinated. The Government Accountability Office found the classified intelligence had been presented to Secret Service officials a full 10 days before the July 13th, 2024 assassination attempt in Butler, but the agency's siloed practice for sharing sensitive information resulted in few being aware of the threat. So what they're telling us is that the Secret Service, who is tasked with, amongst other officials, protecting the life of the President of the United States, they don't have a system to share information like this. It didn't exist until after this took place. I beg your pardon, Secret Service, whose job is to protect the life of U.S. officials, diplomats, and the President of the United States, don't have a way to share classified information they receive with agents on the ground about a possible and credible assassination attempt. Do you think we're stupid? So this is my problem, even with the Republicans in Congress that give us these types of reports. They just give us these reports with a bombshell like this, and then it just goes away. We never actually get an answer. Like, the American people deserve an answer. How is this possible? Just like, how is it possible, Pam Bondi, that you change your story 16 times? Can you level with us? Can you be honest with us for just a second? And by the way, with Bongino, because I don't think I finished telling you that part earlier, he's upset and stormed out because he's not going to be the fall guy for this crap. He didn't sign off on this joint memo, I don't think, that was sent out that explained that, the DOJ and the FBI and everyone came to a decision. They looked at all the evidence and there was nothing there. That's essentially what the memo was telling us. And Bongino's a guy like us that's sitting here. He knows there's more, and he gets in there and there is no information. There is no Epstein list. There is no Epstein file. And he's, and he looks like an idiot. And they want the FBI to take the fall. And look, Bongino's like me. He's like many of you. He has this bond with his audience, with other Americans out there. He feels strongly about these topics like you do. And he goes to Washington, D.C. like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Mr. Bongino goes to Washington. And it's like, what the F? I know he's been a Secret Service agent before too, but you get my drift. So he's sitting there like, the F? The FBI, because look, remember, Dan Bongino one of the reasons he took this job is because he wanted to restore the credibility of the FBI. He wanted to restore credibility in these particular areas of the federal government. That's what he went there to do. And this undermines the credibility of the FBI. This Epstein debacle doesn't create trust in the FBI. And they were working so hard to restore that trust. And this undermines all of it. So that's why I'm telling you, I'm not dispassionate about the effect it has on the country. I think it's relevant, but I also don't think it should end the Trump administration. So anyway, the special agent in charge of the Secret Service's Pittsburgh field office, which oversees the district where the rally took place, told the GAO he did not receive any information about a threat either. And, to add insult to injury here, if you remember after the assassination, we did have, what was this fellow's name? I think you had a changing of the guard at the FBI. I think you had Cheadle out, and I'll see if I can find it, if it's in this report somewhere. But anyway, you had this guy testify, who was the acting head of the Secret Service at the time. And Ronald Rowe, I believe was the fellow's name. So Ronald Rowe, I think, had replaced Cheadle in the interim. Anyway, but Ronald Rowe, he's the one who told us they had this hearing on July 30th last year. And he told us that all the assets the Secret Service had requested were approved. That's not true. He lied to us. He had bad information, or he lied, whatever it was. But they did request drones. They requested resources, and these resources were denied. Now, it doesn't matter to me whether they were denied, why they were denied. Oh, we don't have enough. We got to protect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There's not enough for Donald Trump. Anyway, I am very frustrated. I'm just expressing that to you. I know you probably feel this way too. Now we get this big bombshell report that gives us nothing. You're giving us nothing. I know Congress wants to pat themselves on the back. These elected officials in the Republican Party, they run out to TV and they get their moment of fame. Nobody's heard of their name before, but now they're part of this report. And they tell Laura Ingraham, or they tell Sean Hannity, or they tell whoever they're talking to on the news, wow, you won't believe this, The Secret Service, they heard about a classified threat 10 days before. Okay, well, what are you doing to fix it? Where's the answer? Thomas Crooks. How did this guy become some assassin? This guy's like a straight A student. Then he becomes a loner. He registers as a Republican, and then he votes. He gives money to Joe Biden's campaign. And you want us to believe that this guy almost pulled off the successful assassination attempt, and he's like an 18-year-old kid who's supposed to go to college? A year later, we have nothing? Is there just certain information that we can't handle as a country? Maybe that's true. I don't know. But I think we deserve an explanation about why the president that I voted for and that many of us supported and still supports was almost murdered. Why an American citizen was actually murdered on that day. And there's just no information. And this is where the conspiracy theories come from. We have to fill in the narrative because we can't trust our government to give us one. Certainly not an honest one. I don't know. I'm sick of that story. I might come back to it in a minute. If you're like me and you're getting to that age where your body just hurts all the time, listen to me. Don't reach for another painkiller until you learn about this little-known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You probably heard about turmeric being used to fight inflammation and joint pain. Well, you won't be surprised to know, but all turmeric's not created equal. Regular turmeric powder in your pantry might help a little, but a leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than what you'd find in standard turmeric. This turmeric extract, it attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch so that not only the pain goes away, but it stays away. Dr. Josh, he's the brains behind it all. He spent 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans finally break free from constant aches and stiffness, and his turmeric hack has been the backbone of their success. Now he's sharing it with all of us. Say goodbye to the expensive surgeries, pain injections, ineffective over-the-counter remedies, and say hello to pain-free living. But again, you just can't take any old turmeric. So if you want to learn more about Dr. Josh, you want to learn about his turmeric hack and the exact method for how to use it, incorporate it in your daily routine, just go to goldenrevive.com/dailyclout. The link will be put on the video screen when this replays. Just click it and start your journey towards a pain-free, healthier life. All right. Did you hear? Actually, before we get to that, we're still cranking here. People are still joining this. I hope you're having as much fun as I am, as impassioned as I am today. I want to get into the AutoPin scandal because while we're talking about Epstein, we're talking about still J6, getting to the bottom of Thomas Crooks, the would-be supposed assassin in Butler, Pennsylvania. I mean, there's just a million of these things going on. The AutoPin scandal is one of the most relevant scandals in American history. And we need to talk about it. And we need to talk about it seriously and put it in context because for 4 years, our country was hijacked. I mean, it was being run by people that nobody voted for. On top of the fact that we know that they stole the election to begin with. I mean, this is like unbelievable what happened in 2020. And I'm not ready to move on from that. Epstein, there are victims there. There are a lot of victims in what happened in 2022 related to the economy, related to illegal immigration, related to criminality, related to all the things they did. And again, the Epstein stuff epitomizes that for people. Whether it's the most important thing or not doesn't really matter because in the minds of many Americans, tell me if I'm wrong. I think this is true probably for a lot of you. Let me know if this is how you feel. But the Epstein stuff just represents the political elite getting away with crimes and murder about this two-tier justice system. They weaponized the justice system to go after, President Trump when he was running for office. Parents that were at school board meeting. I mean, it was unbelievable what happened in this country. It was like Nazi Germany. It was like that. It was becoming like that with COVID. Everyone remembers that. Conspiracy theory, we were all right. And so we want justice. We want to know that things are changing. We want to know that there's accountability. We want to know that our country belongs to us. We want confidence. We want to believe in America again for many people. And when this Epstein stuff happened, it just took the wind out of a lot of people's sails who thought we were making progress. And reality is progress is being made, but emotions are powerful things. And the emotion surrounding Epstein, the emotion of the promise, the emotion of all of that, this administration's making a big mistake if they think this is just going to completely go away. Look, I'm here to talk reason. I'm here to talk sense, but zeitgeist is something that can't be controlled. Once you don't know when it's going to present itself, when it gets away, what the issue is going to be. And there is a possibility this Epstein stuff, whether it should be as damaging as some people want to make it or not, it's not for me to decide. I'm just saying it's serious. Should be taken seriously. Now, listen to this. It's I don't even know how to introduce this topic. I don't want to make a joke about it. Did you hear about the doctor? Let me do it this way. Did you hear about the doctor? I think she's a pediatrician. Dr. Christina B. Probst. You ever heard that name yet? So she is a pediatrician in Texas who claimed that the Texas flood victims were Trump supporters who got what they voted for. Now, of course, she's been fired since. She's groveling, apologizing. She doesn't mean it. She's a demon. But wow, in a rare case of justice for humanity, she was fired from her job and now she's, feigning like she cares. And you know what? I hate fake apologies more than someone not apologizing at all. Like if you're a commie jerk off, if you're a tyrant, if you're a monster like this person, don't apologize at all. Your apology's not sincere. Just double down on being the horrible person that you are. Like, so I'm not going to have sympathy. Are you going to have sympathy? Let me tell you this story. So I'll just kind of read from this article for a minute. So she says she's taking full responsibility for her now viral post while blaming it, of course, blaming it in part on her not knowing that so many precious lives were lost to the terrible tragedy. Here's what she said. She posted this under her old Facebook username, Christina. May all visitors, children, non-MAGA voters, and pets be safe and dry. Kerr County MAGA voted to gut FEMA. They deny climate change. May they get what they voted for. Bless their hearts. You know, one of the things that I just don't like about, well, you know, there's so much tragedy that happens, whether it's, you know, Laken Riley, her murder by an illegal. I mean, there's tragedy everywhere all day that's taking place, and they're individual stories, and they don't get media attention. And it's not possible they would get media attention, but it's just, there's so much in the human psyche, the human spirit. You know, we can't handle it all, process it all. There's so much numbness that's happened, and I really resent it. It happens to me too. But sometimes, because of what I'm going through in my own personal life, what I'm experiencing, there are certain stories that really like affect me. Like, I wish maybe all stories affected me, but in this case, man, and I'm not like a super emotional guy. I'm not, yeah, certainly not a big crier, but like, I can feel myself struggling even now. That's how much it's affected me. But I saw the pictures of the it was an all girls camp, and there were other people that died too, but the focus was this all girls camp in Texas. And I grew up in Dallas. I knew people that went to this camp, girls, and Camp Mystic. And man, I saw the pictures of sisters that young sisters who had died, and these pictures of these precious girls. And you know, I've got two young daughters, a 2.5-year-old now and a 6-month-old, and I just like, man, I started to imagine like what are these, how would I like even go on in life? How would I survive losing like both of my daughters that I sent to this camp? And then you have this pediatrician by virtue of her occupation is supposed to take care of children, the very girls who were at this camp who died. And that she could be so callous towards the loss of those lives that they got what they deserved somehow because their parents were people at this school she assumed were Trump supporters, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't. It doesn't matter. Like, think about the type of monsters that exist in the society. Many people feel this way. This was the attitude of, I mean, I've told this story 100 times. I'm not going to rehash it. It's not a sob story. Definitely doesn't make me cry like this story about these girls. But I lost all my friends, childhood friends, in 2020 because I voted for Trump. And not just I voted for Trump. I didn't buy I wouldn't agree with them that Donald Trump was, you know, slaughtering innocent people, but like he directly killed anyone killed by COVID. It was Donald Trump who had blood in his hands. Like, I wouldn't accept that. And these people wanted to put us in gulags and concentration camps and whatever else. I never forgot that. I don't know how much y'all's lives were affected from the COVID stuff. I mean, I imagine a great deal, but it had really immense, vast impact on my life and who I am today and how I view the world, because there was a danger lurking in the country base that was ideological that I didn't recognize right away. I grew up listening to Rush or whoever else on the radio talking about the left. And, you know, in the early days, Rush would it was kind of a comedy show, the way he talked about the homeless updates and stuff. And if you noticed over time, Rush wasn't as comedic anymore because something changed in the country. Rush changed. He got older, more experienced, whatever. But that was a wake up call for me. And so I don't dismiss this. I don't take this lightly. And I think about, okay, are you safe based on your political beliefs in a doctor's office? Like, are you promised? If you've got pediatricians like this wishing death, saying that they deserved it because of politics, because they're Democrats and you are not a Democrat, how can you trust these physicians to give you equal treatment in a hospital? How can you trust their judgment? How can you be sure that they're able to uphold the oath they take? That no harm should come to no one. I don't buy it. I mean, this is the thing in the society. Like, this is the mental illness that is the left at this point. Like, I don't care. I can go and have a savage debate. I just watched a debate between oh man, I'm blowing it. Josh Hammer and Doug Smith, whatever his name is, Doug the comic, the libertarian that doesn't like Jews so much. And that was heated. I can do that with people all day long. But, when it comes to children and this attitude, like, and her excuse, well, I wouldn't have said it if I'd known the extent of the death. She knew that kids had died. She knew that people were dying, and she said it. And this is the point. These people, this is part of their inhumanity. They're not capable of looking in the mirror and saying, I actually made a mistake. Like, there's something wrong with me. She hasn't changed at all. How many doctors like Christina Probst exist throughout this country? All right. How many lives are at risk over politics because some left-leaning lunatic with Trump derangement syndrome can't get it together enough to separate their politics from their job? Huh? They're out there. So to me, this is serious. And I want to talk about this auto pin. We got to do the auto pin. I've saved it till the end. We're gonna hit that and hit it hard. Are you ready to move more easily and independently, without pain, without stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and not see Christina Probst, the eyes of a demon staring back at you, but perhaps a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen. It's made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in the body. Found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut, types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, no additives, no artificial sweeteners. Plus, it is third-party tested to remove heavy metals. It doesn't have heavy metals, so it's pure. It's safe. It's flavorless. Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. I have added it to all of those things. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily, and it mixes perfectly without clumping. That's key. And the best part, they offer amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice, but they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, etc. You can join their private Facebook community to share success stories, recipes, support each other. Go to getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your transformation today. That is getnativepath.com/dailyclout. First, I want to do something right. I want to take an opportunity because I told you last time, thank you for helping grow the show. We're really growing exponentially, and that's thanks to you. I do my best I don't pull any punches. But I look at what's happening out there. And honestly, I don't even know, I always I don't want to say get in the weeds because that has a negative connotation, but I feel like compelled to address some of these, what I believe are kind of fringe views or things happening. I don't even know if that's most of my audience, but there are so many new people. I feel compelled to address it in such a way. But this is a show about information and education, obviously. And I want to share that with you. So this flood, there's been information about, cloud seeding. Now, look, some of you have been way ahead of the curve on this cloud seeding stuff. I've been very skeptical about that. Only recently was I like, oh, wow, this is happening. It started with in the Middle East. Was it whatever, you guys can think of it, but whatever, they had flooding there, and they had been doing cloud seeding. I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, they can do this. So they inject something into the cloud, into the into the clouds effectively, and they can only do it with, there has to be specific circumstances that are happening in the atmosphere, but they do it to stimulate rain. And I don't know the extent of what cloud seeding is capable of. They were doing testing in Texas. To be honest, the thing that made me think that maybe cloud seeding had contributed to what happened in Texas was Sean Ryan, right, Navy SEAL, who typically interviews, war heroes, American fighters. He was promoting this interview with somebody in Texas who, worked for a company, and he was like defending himself and letting people know that, they were doing cloud seeding that day, but the experiment had ended before that, and there's no way that their interference in the climate could have participated. And the fact that Sean Ryan's platforming this guy and giving him such a big audience actually started to make me think that maybe this guy in Texas, this cloud seeding company, did contribute to this in some way. But nonetheless, climate change, as the left talks about it, is actually a hoax. I want to pull up a quick graph for you. So this is from the CO2 Coalition. They do amazing work, by the way, on all of this, combating the climate change, man-made climate change narrative. This is annual reported number of flash floods in Texas. And you can see down at the bottom, 2024, 2025, you can see kind of where it's going, how low it is compared to other years. So this was an extraordinary event that took place in this location. But in terms of flooding happens in Texas. It's not a new phenomenon. And I did want to share something with you that I had looked up from if I can actually find it. Bear with me. Well, it doesn't matter. I guess that graph's the main thing I wanted to show you. But the thing I wanted to add was that, this particular area is known for flooding based on its location, based on the loose sediment that exists there, the topography. It's a place that's prone to flooding. So flooding itself isn't new. And I really get tired of the left is particularly disgusting with what they're trying to do with the flooding, because they're trying to blame it on Donald Trump. Now, none of these so-called, budget cuts that they're trying to blame for this that have happened at the EPA or elsewhere. I mean, they're even going so far as to say, this is because Donald Trump canceled, the billions of dollars that went to, Democrat slush funds via the EPA being one of the most corrupt, areas of the federal government. I mean, it's unbelievable what's been happening there, and very effective at robbing us of our rights. But, this area, it's horrific. It's tragic what happened there, but floods have happened for a long time. They happen in many places, and it's not because of climate change, and it's not because of Donald Trump being in office either. All right, let's hit this auto pen. Now, I have not heard many people talk about what I'm about to talk about, which of course is, how rare is the use of the auto pen, right? I mean, when I dig into this, obviously, I am as conservative as they come. I am a MAGA enthusiast. I am an America First guy. I don't make qualms about that. But I think because I spent most of my life around Democrats, I always want to look at the other side, look and examine, context. Because, I mean, that's one of the questions, right? It won't really relate to what Joe Biden did, because Joe Biden, the problem with the auto pen was obviously it was abused. And if you're using an auto pen, but you're not even present in the Oval Office ever, and you're mentally incapacitated as Joe Biden was, and obviously the auto pen presents an opportunity to people that want to hijack the country. And that's what happened for the last 4 years. But, you know, if you read the left wants to downplay. The reason I'm doing this, the left wants to downplay this auto pen scandal. And it should not be downplayed. It's one of the most shocking things that's happened in U.S. history. Okay. Now, the auto pen has been around since like the 1800s, the invention of it. And the left, if you read their articles, they'll try and tell you, oh, yeah, you know, former presidents and U.S. officials have bought these they buy the auto pen like you bought the yo-yo when it first came out. Wow, this is so cool. A pen that can, you know, kind of sign your name for you. It was never used for legislation. It was never used or meant to be used by presidents and other officials to sign important documents that only the person in that position, the president, for example, could sign off of. It wasn't a replacement for the president, but that's what it was used for under the Biden administration. Now, here's an NPR. Here's the context. NPR. Look at the date, May 27th, 2011. Obama's auto pen signing of Patriot Act raises eyebrows, has unlikely ally. I'll pull up some pull quotes here, but what you'll go on to discover is that it was the first time in U.S. history an auto pen had been used in such a way. He used it to sign an extension of the Patriot Act while he was overseas in Europe. That would be President Obama at the time. And the unlikely ally is a memo, of course, that the Bush administration had written up that discussed the legality and approved the use of an auto pen under such circumstances. So here we go. President Obama's authorization of an aide back in Washington to use an auto pen to affix the presidential signature to the bill extending the Patriot Act is typo, NPR, is being challenged by some, including a Republican House member who sent a letter to the White House. But the president, who was in Europe at the time, has some sound legal backing for the use of the auto pen. Okay. It is apparently the first time in U.S. history this has been done. That's what I told you. The memo acknowledges that it has never been done and that White Houses have gone to great lengths in the past to get legislation in the hands of presidents who are traveling abroad just to avoid these questions. There was no time for that to be done in the case of the Patriot Act extension, blah, blah, blah. But it concluded that just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. You know what this reminds me of as I talk about this? The trajectory of this country and the radicalization of it, the rampant evidence and existence of just political corruption like we've never seen before really started under the Obama administration. Clinton's too, but Obama is really, really where a hijacking took place. It's an inflection point in American history, just like this was an inflection point, Donald Trump winning the election. So here's the thing. So you had like over 1,000 clemencies granted, like in the last 24 hours of the Biden administration, which is not, the number was unprecedented. The clemency pardons, presidential pardons being given at that time that's not weird. That's typically how it's done. John, I want to read what Jane Payne says here because you are what makes this show. And I want to give you a voice because this is a very smart audience. This is so outrageous, I can't even. The Patriot Act is the most treacherous piece of commie rag ever perpetrated on the American people since our inception. Yeah, you know what? It's funny, Jane. I think a lot of people, I've heard Metaxas, Urban Taxes, other people talk about this. You know, they're so ashamed that they supported Bush in the past. And the alternatives were never better. But it's just politically so much has happened in this country, and it's for the better. I think people are awake, and we're more skeptical. And to come back around to kind of how we open the show too, on the one hand, it's dangerous to be kind of a perpetual conspiracy theorist, to add to every story just because you don't believe anything ever. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the non-skeptic, the person that just accepts everything blindly because somebody in government says so. You don't want to be there either. You want to be somewhere in between. But yes, I mean, the Patriot Act was outrageous. I mean, scare the people and, just like COVID. Oh, you're all going to die. Give up your freedoms. Okay. And that was scary. And I never looked at the Patriot Act the same way, but it was the same thing they did with terrorism instead. Terrorism was real, of course. But anyway, so basically they had these, they say they had these meetings with Joe Biden, with the aides, and they went through some of these pardons that were supposed to take place. And I don't believe any of this actually took place, but they claim that, Biden was there. Biden's going to the New York Times. This is where this is coming from. It's an interview with the New York Times. Biden said that he had orally granted all the pardons and commutations issued at the end of his term, calling President Trump and other Republicans liars for claiming his aides had used an auto pen to do so without his authorization. It's amazing. By the way, can someone find Jake Tapper? What is Jake Tapper doing? He's the one who just came out with a big bombshell book that revealed what we had been saying for 5 years, that Joe Biden was an incompetent boob and a figurehead running this country, that he was mentally incapacitated. And Jake Tapper has finally seen the light. He didn't see it for 5 years as we screamed it, but suddenly he talked to people and he realized, wow, this guy's gone. Is Jake Tapper going to cover this story? What's Jake Tapper's opinion on the auto pen? Because this seems to directly refute Jake Tapper's own recent conclusions that Joe Biden wasn't doing anything in the White House. But of course, Joe Biden, who couldn't pick up a pen for 4 years and sign his name to anything, now he's busy at the New York Times demanding that they rewrite his legacy in the way that he claims it took place. So anyway, the accounts were drafted by aides to the senior advisors who had participated in these key meetings, talking about these people to give clemency to, like Jeffrey Zients and Mr. Siskel. The assistants who drafted the blurbs were not themselves in the room with Mr. Biden, according to the list of meeting participants. The emails imply that Mr. Siskel and Mr. Zients relayed what Mr. Biden has said to the assistants, who then documented it. Here's where it gets wild. At the January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval Room of the White House residence, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through such discussions, according to people familiar with it. Does anyone believe that for a second? Joe Biden wasn't awake at 10 p.m. ever, except maybe when they pumped him full of cocaine, Hunter Biden's cocaine, to step out on the stage to debate Donald Trump or, finish a speech. The email showed that an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft summary of Mr. Biden's decisions of that meeting to an assistant to Mr. Zients, copying Mr. Siskel at 10:03 p.m. The assistant forwarded it to these people, asking for their approval. They sent the final version to Ms. Feldman, copying meeting participants. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zients hit reply all. So anyway, the point is, even if it was true that he was aware of the people, these lists were changed in between the time that Joe Biden allegedly signed off on them. So he's signing off on one list. The list changes. There's new names on there and names dropped off. And this is being approved not by Joe Biden. That we know for a fact. So the auto pen was being used to sign off on these things. And Joe Biden never knew what was going on. He didn't actually know. He did. I mean, does anyone believe for a second that Joe Biden's sitting here going through a list of 1,500 people or 1,300 people or whatever it was? And he's, yeah. Explain why this person deserves clemency and forgiveness. Why should they be out of jail? Well, this is an illegal alien who just murdered like an American citizen last week, but they're really good because they've got a family and they're cool. And they came from El Salvador and stuff. And they only participate in human. Okay, yeah. That one's good. Sign off on that one. So I just want you to understand the seriousness of this. That we, for 4 years, we know for a fact, we don't need conspiracy theory here. We know for a fact that Joe Biden was not running the country. 2020 is another matter. They stole the election. Yeah, I get that. I've talked about that ad nauseum. But let's just focus on when he's in there. He's not running the country. So somebody who's not the president of the United States is acting as the president of the United States, and the American people are never told about it. And this is happening for 4 years, and the media's silent. They're not interested, and in fact, they're covering it up. So for 4 years, this is why we have the mess that we have. This is why we have the mess that Donald Trump has to clean up, because for 4 years, it was a free-for-all. There was no direction. There was no foreign policy. There was just a bunch of people that didn't run for office running the country, making the decisions that were designated for the president of the United States. Now, let's end with this. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she visited Alligator Alcatraz. And what's amazing about this clip I'm going to play is that the Democrats have a very fascinating way of loving criminals. They have unlimited sympathy for criminals, the worst criminals in the world, not just people who are here illegally, but people who are here illegally and committed crimes, that are gang members, that are rapists and murders. And there was a ICE raid of a weed plant not too far from me in California, but in Northern California. And they picked up over 100 illegals, one of them being a known pedophile, adult pedophile, and children as well. But, just good people with families here. Got to protect them. Here's Wasserman Schultz discovering that a prison isn't supposed to be a 5-star hotel.
What we saw, the conditions that we saw inside this internment camp, which it is nothing less than that description, were really appalling. I'll walk you through just a few of the really egregious, disturbing, disgusting conditions. They are using cages. These detainees are living in cages. The pictures that you've seen don't do it justice. They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. That is the only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are 3 tiny toilets that are toilet units that have a sink attached to it.
I mean, leave it to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Democrats to have apparently never seen a prison before, never been met with the concept of a prison before. I went there, and you should see where these criminals are temporarily being held until we deport them back to their country of origin. They have a toilet and a sink and a bed, and they're in these cages. Like in New York, when Joe Biden was running the show with the auto pen, we were taking over 4- and 5-star hotels in Manhattan and housing the criminal illegals there. That's how they deserve to be treated. The homeless, the American homeless, the veteran, the people that never recovered their lives because of COVID, they can sleep in Central Park in the winter and die freezing to death. But these illegals, my God, they need one-way tickets anywhere in the country they can get to. They have beds, and they have to share a toilet and a sink. These criminals, I cannot believe. Why doesn't Debbie Wasserman Schultz and other Democrats volunteer to turn their homes into facilities to house these illegals in the meantime? Look, we don't have to have alligator Alcatraz. Nancy Pelosi has her Napa Valley house, which is just down the street from my own. I bet they've got some room in there. It's not cages. But we can put them inside Pelosi's home. They can volunteer. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, volunteer your house. I'm sure you have a lovely home. You can bathe them if you want, You can bathe with them if you want, whatever you want to do. Turn into a brothel, whatever you think these illegals need, that's their sacred right as criminals in this country. But anyway, and this is a losing topic for the Democrats. But anyway, look, that's all we have time for today. We've gone an hour, 12 minutes. I'm really grateful to you all. But, I'm going to keep on the Epstein stuff like anybody else, but we got to be realistic. I'm not going to tank the Trump administration over. There's a lot of justice that is beginning to happen and calls for it. But certainly I don't have a tolerance for anybody that's calling Bongino some sack of crap right now. It's so easy to do that as a keyboard warrior. And I told you at the beginning of the show, if you're just tuning in, go back and listen because, I don't know Dan Bongino, but Dan Bongino has really taken one for the country, like so many of these people, and how quick we are to just turn our backs on them when you don't even know the story. All right. God bless you all. This is Drew Allen, your Millennial Minister of Truth. Until next time.